Greetings, my name's Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Chaos Head Noah. So, who's ready for yet another new day on New Gen Madness? I know I am. And things really got mad in the last episode, if I do say so myself. More people died, and the whole city was enveloped in white light. And enveloped spontaneous headaches. And it all started with that mysterious phone call that we got towards the end of the last stream. I'm still convinced that these two events are connected somehow. And Takumi likely plays a much bigger role than we may be seeing here. Call it a gut feeling. I could be quite wrong about this, but something tells me I'm not. Which is why they call it a gut feeling. Anywho, we're on the streets. I hear sirens in the background. Clearly there are emergencies spawning all over the place. Once I was hit with the cold air of the outside world, my headache ever so slightly subsided. The city had a more restless atmosphere to it than usual, probably due to the earthquake from earlier. I didn't know that for sure, though. In the distance, the sound of sirens continued to echo endlessly, but I wasn't sure if they were from ambulances or fire trucks. Could have been both. Yamate Dori, which was 1 block away from me, was completely jammed up. Traffic was bumper to bumper. There are multiple visible accidents, most head-on, and the cars involved have simply been left abandoned on the road, their drivers nowhere to be found. Those abandoned cars were the cause of this traffic jam. The other drivers were honking their horns like crazy. As I was wandering the streets to get to school, I saw a dog crossing the road, barking. It was a chihuahua sprinting at full speed, dragging its leash behind its small body. Uh-oh. Its eyes were bloodshot, and a large amount of drool was dripping from its open mouth. It had probably gone separate from its owner. Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious. As I absentmindedly watched it get farther and farther away, I tripped on something and nearly fell over. The asphalt was cracked, and one section of the road was ever so slightly lower than the rest. Oh, looks like the earthquake was bad enough to, was bad enough to change the elevation, some aspects of the ground. Watch your step, Takumi. It had most likely come from the earthquake. Stopping right there, I looked up at the sky. There were a few white clouds drifting calmly across the dull light blue. I almost said bright. Just after the earthquake hit, something similar to an aurora had formed in the sky and tainted it pure white, but the traces of it had already disappeared. This isn't right. This isn't Shibuya. I couldn't calm down in the slightest. Not just because of the earthquake, and not just because of the headache either. It wasn't just those, but a certain urge that was threatening to overtake me. For some reason, walking around like this, it made me feel like I wanted to kill someone. Well, if I had to guess where that urge is coming from, it's probably the same thing that might be theoretically at least, driving some people to possibly kill each other. Assuming that's what these new gen murders actually are, where they're just being influenced by some VR satellite technology from the distance, some kind of psychic assisted mind control, or some combination of the two. I'm pretty sure I remember speculating that was one possible theory that was creating these murders, but I still feel like I'm missing something here. But if that's indeed what's going on, then there really is no single culprit for these new-gen murders. Unless you count whoever is controlling the VR technology that's affecting people's minds like this, in which case, well, I guess you can pin all the new-gen murders on them, technically. By the time I got to the school gate, the anxiety and sense of dread I'd been feeling were increasing by the second. I had the chills. My body wouldn't stop shivering, and my headache was coming back. When I looked closely, I noticed a group of students formed around the third-year building. I looked for Remy within them. For some odd reason, everyone was looking toward the top of the building. Was someone gonna jump? And even those who weren't soon followed, almost like a bunch of lemmings.
Oh, Taku!
Misumi-kun rushed over to me. I should ask him where Remy was.
お前、今日学校来てたんだな。いや、そんなの今はどうでもいいから。
He looked gravely serious, and his face was pale. Seeing Misumi-kun like this was very unusual. What the hell is going on?
マジで。やばいよな。あれ。
Things are bad. What did that mean? What was bad? Look up!
病気だったんだろ。精神病のことがバレて余計におかしくなっちゃったらしいぜ。さっき飛べるとか言ってたぜ。やべえよ。やばすぎる。俺、人が死ぬとこマジで見てんだけど、きっとグロすぎて最高だぜ。早く落ちてこねえかな。
I could hear things like that coming from everywhere around me. Don't tell me. I had a bad feeling about this. Fearfully following the gazes of the other students, I looked up at the school building. Fess? On the edge of the rooftop stood a single girl. In her hand, just like during the concert, was a D-sword, with a pose emblematic of praying to God in the heavens above. On the edge of the roof stood Kishimoto Ayase.
Sono karada wa 写真の影に潜む。目には映らない存在。
Kishimoto Ayase felt the wind blowing. The cold wind brought with it a faint hint of winter. Her expression inundated with pain. Huge drops of sweat formed on her face as she faced the chilled gales. I just remembered something. We had delusion we had delusion like this back when we first saw her in the concert, didn't we? Didn't Takumi hallucinate her being on the edge of a school roof building? Seemingly suicidal? That was a premonition, wasn't it? It really was. Oh, shit. Don't leave me, Fess. You have so much left to live for, I'm sure.
離れようとも離れようとも冷めぬ悪夢は。
The Sume Academy rooftop was enclosed by a 2-meter-high wire fence. Ayase was standing on the other side of it, occupying a space of only around 30 centimeters. 10 minutes had passed since she had first started standing there. One more step, and she would fall from the roof of the 4-story school building. Many students were gathered below Ayase, watching her with bated breath.
やがて剣となりてこの身を切り裂くのだろう。
Although the police and emergency services had already been contacted, they had yet to arrive, likely due to the earthquake that had only hit a few hours prior. The teachers were running around in a panic, scrambling to get gym mats ready in the case of the worst possible outcome.
無関心という名の盾で戦火を免れる人々。
And yet, Ayase stood completely still, unperturbed by the ruckus below. Or rather, she had deliberately cut herself off from the rest of the world that lay beneath her. As she gazed up to the sky, Ayase closed her eyes, her pose emulative of that of a maiden praying to the heavens. Due to her good sense of balance, the wind did not manage to sway her slender body. A fact made all the more impressive by her grasping a sword as long as she was tall.
神聖なる戦場の敵は心の内の悪意なるもの。
The sword, her D-sword, was blinking with a pale blue light. As if synchronized with it, Ayase's labored breathing continued, and then she began to murmur once more.
悪意は時として意志を持ち、そしてその姿を表す。
The verses she unfolded through her murmurs soon vanished into the wind. Ayase opened her eyes and gazed at the crimson sky spreading over the buildings of Shibuya.
この世界は悪意の妄想に満ち溢れている。みんな他人の不幸が大好き。目を閉じても耳を塞いでもダメ。昔からずっと私のそばを離れてくれないわ。
As she breathed a soliloquy into the air, Ayase pulled her gigantic sword to her chest and gently embraced it with both arms. Curiously, the sharp sword did not leave a single injury on her.
帰りたかった。大いなる意志が住むもう一つの世界に。そのために心を切り刻んで全部受け入れたわ。混沌の器としての夢を。
The vessel of chaos? Ayase's face twisted in sorrow. Tears quietly spilled from her eyes. Droplets flowing voicelessly were all swiftly carried away by the wind.
だけどグラジオールの帯同が活発化している。もう時間がないのに見つからない。見つからないのよ。天国の扉も賢者も導き手も七つの神罰も。黒騎士の伝説は本当なの？
The Black Knights. We were researching that on the web when we were first looking to the D-swords, weren't we? Along with 7 divine punishments. Quite certain I read something about that somewhere earlier in the game.
歌はもうたくさん歌ったわ。それで足りないって言うならね、大いなる意志よ。
Ayase spread her arms out far and wide, as if trying to embrace the sky itself, as if trying to show her presence to God on high.
私は飛ぶわ。
The pale blue pulsation of her sword intensified. Ayase closed her eyes once more, And in that moment, a final tear dropped from the corner of her eye.
お願い、この器は差し出すから、魂を連れて行って。
And then, without a moment's hesitation, the girl, with nothing there to support her, took a step forward.
帰るべき場所へ。
She felt the cold caressing her cheek. Her gaze fell to the earth. Huh? What the hell? Looming closer as she fell was a door, a gate, and on the other side of it was the sky Ayase desired. The same sky that Rimi was looking at. I couldn't do anything but watch it unfold. After Ayase spread her arms out, she slowly stepped into the thin air, as if taking a step down a non-existent staircase. Screams began to build among the spectators, coalescing into one gigantic roar. With nothing left to support her, Ayase, like a puppet whose strings had been cut, fell head first toward the ground. Everything appeared to be in slow motion. Ayase's body was going to crash to the ground. Her descent was incredibly slow, but she was definitely falling. She was gonna die. Ayase was gonna die. Prime opportunity for a Deus Ex Machina moment to occur, if I do say so myself. I couldn't do anything to stop it. I couldn't save someone falling from that high. Unless the power of delusion can. And there was nothing but concrete below her. It would crush all her bones, rupture all her organs, and make her dark blood and gray matter spurt out all over the ground. If only there was a flower bed or something. If only there was something soft below her. If there was, maybe it could save her. I didn't want to see someone die. As I went to close my eyes, for an ephemeral moment, why am I having trouble pronouncing this word? Ephemeral moment, I felt chills on the nape of my neck. I looked behind me, but not a soul was standing there. Everyone was either looking down, averting their eyes, or looking up at her. Whose eyes are those eyes? A sound shook the air. The sound of a person crashing down. It was the first time I'd ever heard that sound. But it had a lot less impact than I was expecting.
Masaka.
Next to me stood Misumi-kun, his eyes wide as dinner plates. If my first negative delusion with Ayase caused this, then I killed her, didn't I? I expected his gaze to be tainted by dread, but the way he stared at the place Ayase had fallen was one of surprise, not horror. Huh? And it wasn't just Misumi-kun that was like that. All the spectators looked like they had no idea what was going on. They were all lost for words. Deus Ex Machina?
生きてる
Huh? She was alive? Well, look at that. Ayase wasn't getting up. I couldn't tell if her bones were crushed. I couldn't tell if her bones had ruptured. But her gray matter hadn't spurted everywhere, nor had her dark blood. A small, feeble groan escaped from Ayase's mouth. She was alive. She seemed to be unconscious, and she wasn't moving. But she was alive. She was barely even injured. There was only a small drop of blood on her forehead. She had fallen from the rooftop, but there she was, lying there almost completely unharmed, lying atop a flower bed.
花壇に
Was there always a flower bed there? Not until we begged for something soft to be below her. Did we make this happen too?
"予定と結果に大きな違いがあったようだが、
我々は進化への第一歩を踏み出したんですよ。
三桁もの死人が出るなど我々は聞いておらんぞ。
計画に不備があったのかね。
いいえ。
I hear a humming noise. Something wrong with my earbuds or anything, is there?
お二人にはぜひ人の進化の歴史というものを振り返ってみていただきたいものですね。
進化には多少の犠牲はつきものという点については異論はないよ。
死人のことなどどうでもいい。重要なのは予定と違うということだ。
想定の範囲内ですよ。私の中ではね。
ならばなぜ事前に我々へ連絡せんのだ。情報をコントロールするにはそれなりの下準備が必要なのだぞ。貴様の推挙のために人や金を犠牲にしてきたわけではない。それを忘れるな。
ご安心を。先ほど申しました通り、全ては想定の範囲内。いずれ近いうちに選挙での票集めに苦労することも、強引な勧誘活動を告発される恐れもなくなるでしょう。我々が日本を、いや世界を変える日もじきに。
口を慎め。300人委員会への造反が知れれば我らに待っているのは破滅だけだ。
君の役目は計画通りにことを進めることであって、それ以上でも以下でもないよ。
調整は我々がやる。
承知しています。
それで第二世代についての報告を聞こうか。
お二人にも満足していただける仕上がりですよ。ノア2はね。
Noah 2. Noah 2, as in there's more than one. Does Noah refer to a person in this case? And I wonder if Shougan has any connection to to this Noah figure. Thinking about it now, I wonder. Anyway, what's this? Committee of 300. A secret organization shrouded in mystery, rumored to manipulate the world from behind the scenes. What, like the Freemasons and the Illuminati? That sort of thing? Composed of only 300 members, they are known as the Unseen Rulers. Their subordinates include the royalty of numerous nations, intelligence agencies, and large enterprises, with a focus on banking, They are all mere puppets of the 300, as are any other secret societies that often appear in conspiracy theories. Oh, so this is the super secret society then. It is said that almost the entire world is bent to their will, whether it be companies, police, research institutes, etc., including the Meiwa Party that we learned about in the last episode. However, their existence is only a rumor. The Committee of 300's ultimate goal is theorized to be the construction of the so-called New World Order under the Worldwide Human Domestication Project. Outside the few elite, 1 billion humans will be left behind, while all others are slaughtered. Those billion that survive will remain as slaves subject to the ruler's administration. So we're not even going through a whole eugenics approach with this thing, huh? It's just call a wider population, leave an X number behind for the sole purpose of serving the elite. Usually this sort of thing, I tend to hear eugenics angles being proposed in order to create a superior breed of humans. I mean, you see this kind of plot line in all kinds of fiction all the time. At least the ones I see. So, but I mean, hey, at least it's something different. Even if everything else about this doesn't really feels pretty derivative, all things considered. And 300 is a very interesting number. I wonder why 300. My first thought was the Spartans that the 300 Spartans that went to war against the Persian army way back in the day. But something tells me that that's not in reference to that. I bolted away from the school as fast as I could, and I ran all the way to the park. Only when I felt like I was about to suffocate did I stop. My lungs were in dire need of oxygen. As I gasped for breath, I took a quick look around the park. There was no one around. There was no one there I was afraid of. Neither Shougan nor you were anywhere to be seen. Relieved, I tried to catch my breath. It was almost evening. The sky's blue was slowly turning orange with the twilight. Compared to the insanity at school that had felt so unreal, this park was completely quiet, just as it always was. The incident from before had ended as a failed suicide attempt. Ayase had then been taken away on an ambulance, but I had no way of knowing what happened after that. After going through all that, I gave up on searching for Rimi and came here to the park instead. I'm worried she's going to get committed committed to some mental institution that's being run by Nozomi. The scene from only a few minutes ago was engraved into my mind. Back then, when Ayase's body came crashing down, I'd been convinced that nothing could have saved her. But she had been saved. I didn't know how exactly, but I at least knew she wasn't dead. She had been breathing, virtually unharmed, too. Under normal circumstances, she would have absolutely died. The thing that saved her was a total miracle. A miracle or a delusion? She'd fallen from the top of the tender soil, on the top of the tender soil of a flower bed. Something that was physically impossible. It was physically impossible for Ayase to have fallen on top of a flower bed. And yet it happened. Because there hadn't been a flower bed there. Just before Ayase had fallen, the place where she was going to fall had nothing but gray asphalt of a parking lot. a number of the Sume teachers parked there. So, how had a flower bed just appeared there? Had I done that? It was true that, at the time, I'd been so frightened that I had a delusion about how a flower bed appearing below could save her. But even then, was it really possible? Was it really possible that the delusion had become reality? You managed to make a duplicate of Ayase appear, and Ayase and Sena are able to manifest really powerful swords that have special abilities to them, as we definitely saw with Sena in the last episode too. So I mean, you can face this. You can come face reality anytime you want, my friend. I'm already there waiting for you. So, please hurry up. I'm starting to get sick of you. I'm starting to get sick of you just denying everything that's happening all around you. And I forgot to silence my phone. Can't have that. Okay, let's consider it. First, I had a feeling that I might or might not have special powers. Second, there was a time Ayase had split in two, and now I just experienced something similar to that. So, creating a flower bed in an instant. How could I have achieved something that extraordinary? I didn't even have a D sword. And on top of that, the flower bed had continued to exist, even after Ayase had crashed onto it. When the teachers had rushed to check on her in the flower bed, their footprints had been visible. The flowers blooming there, which appeared to be the same ones in the courtyard, had been trampled over by the emergency services. When I looked, a number of flowers had either been flattened or had their stems completely bent. And the flower bed might have still been there, in that state. A delusion had become reality, and it stayed that way. It hadn't disappeared afterward, which made it different from Ayase's other self. So, if you go back, and if the flower bed is still there, then I think that could definitely confirm one thing to me at least. Some delusions can stay manifested indefinitely, while others will just simply disappear. The only reason I could think why that could be the case is if the person who manifested said delusions wished for them to disappear. But if they don't, then I guess that means that those delusions stay. Interesting. And everyone accepted the idea that the flower bed being there was only natural. No one even questioned it. It affected their perception, the crowd's perception too. The theory I made in the last episode regarding Rimi and her suddenly popping up in Takumi's life the way that she did, and seemingly and seemingly affecting memories of Misumi and of Misumi, with him acting like as though she's always been there, despite us never having any memories of her prior to us seeing her in that alleyway. I wonder if I might be on track to something here regarding whether or not Rimi herself might be some kind of delusion made manifest. And since Takumi is the only one who doesn't seem to know where she came from, or her true nature, maybe Rimi is something that he conjured up? And if that's the case, then what the hell triggered it? What caused him to make her manifest? Especially in the manner that she did. There's still one problem, though, of this theory of mine that immediately comes to mind here. When we first ran into her in that alleyway, she said that she had been looking for us. So let's pretend for a second that my theory is correct here, and that Rimi is some delusion that Takumi created at some point. The obvious question then becomes, when the hell did he accomplish that? How long exactly has Rimi been around, looking for him, prior to us meeting her in that alleyway? And for that matter, why was she staking those spikes, those crosses, into that professor? Why did any of that stuff that we saw in the alleyway happen the way that it did? Why would Takumi create something like that? Why would he create someone like Rimi, for that matter? So I guess bottom line, I'm definitely willing to entertain the possibility that Rimi might not actually be a natural-born human, but there's still some holes in my theory that need explaining, that need plugging, before I can fully believe in the theory concretely. Had I seriously done all that?
Oi!
Oi! Eh? A sharp voice called for me from behind. Is that you, Sena? Before I even got the chance to turn around, a hand grabbed me by the collar. With no chance to resist, I was shoved violently against the playground equipment. I groaned in pain as my back hit the equipment hard. Hey now, is that how you say hello to somebody? I would say so, yeah. It was her. Sena. She was the one tossing me around. What do I just choose here? I really don't know. Either option. I don't really think I can really explain my thought process here, because I'm not sure what to think. So I think I should just rely on gut instinct here. I'm gonna go with green. Oh, whoops! I forgot to read that. It was her, Sena. She was the one tossing me around. She continued gripping my collar with tremendous strength. It grew hard to breathe. I tried to fight back by squirming and flailing around my arms, but she refused to let go. Her eyes were filled with a sharp, murderous light. It sent a shiver down my spine. Thinking I was about to die, I shook my head in desperate denial. Oh, god damn it. I think I'm about to miss some key information here. Shit. I could feel Sena's breath on my cheeks. Just the thought of her only needing to move a bit closer to rip my throat out of her teeth genuinely terrified me. Staring at me at point-blank range. Sena. Well, I'll be. I think this is the first time I got to actually see your eyes. I felt something soft press against my lips. I had no idea what was going on. All I knew was that I couldn't breathe, and I was getting really dizzy. I tried to push myself away from her, but Sena was still grabbing me by the chest, so I couldn't move. Something began wriggling lustfully against my lips, and then it penetrated my mouth. It twisted roughly around my tongue, slid across my gums, and violated me orally. You big baby. Violated. I didn't know what was going on. All I knew was, for some reason, it felt really good. But I still was having trouble breathing. Use your nose, my friend. Definitely helps with prolonged kissing. I was about to pass out. But just before I would have, the wriggling object left my mouth. Wow! A facial expression that isn't a cold, piercing glare. Too bad it's not real, though. Sena's lips glistened with saliva. She had been staring at me with murderous eyes only a few moments ago, but now, her eyes looked utterly enchanted. Wait, had she just kissed me?
お前こそ勇者だ。お前の力を私に貸せ。私と一緒に戦え。拒否するのは許さない。
Well, what if I say no? What are you gonna do then? After rattling off that insanity in an angry voice, Sena brought her face to mine once again. She pressed her lips madly against mine and violated my mouth. Her hot breaths and sweet saliva trickled past my lips.
私は勇者に純潔を捧げるために生まれてきた巫女だ。
Something straight out of a freaking 1990s Japanese video game. Or an anime. In a state of pure ecstasy, she rattled off line after line that made me think, what a rogue is this?
お前がい
Or
ないと
a rogue is,
こ
sure.
の戦いには勝てない。さあ、血の契約を交わそう。
So, the contract. I don't have a pen, so, got any ideas? Sena's teeth sank deeply into my lip. Pain shot through me, and a taste of blood spread inside my mouth. Well, I guess that covers the ink problem.
お前が欲しい。
Did she have any idea how to ask someone something? Better than you do. Even if she did, everything she'd said was completely absurd. But the sensation of basically getting reverse raped. There's no such thing as reverse rape, only rape. Well, to be blunt, I was hard as a rock. I could get into this kind of role play. Now hold up now. If you get too into this fantasy, you might end up holding up Sena in real life, and she might notice, and that could make things hella awkward.
おい、無視するな。
Wasn't intentional, I assure you. I shot back to my senses. Sena was still grabbing me by the chest, and she still had me pinned, and still had me pinned to the playground equipment. There's too many me's. Not everything's about me, Takumi. Even though I wish it was. And her face was still really close. Our eyes met, and my face went hot.
その力のことを誰に教わったんだって聞いているんだ。
I didn't remember her asking anything like that. Maybe that scenario from earlier was just a delusion I'd used to escape reality? Maybe? Despite me still trying to wrap my head around the situation, Sena didn't seem to care and started shaking me violently.
誰からだ？答えろ。天聖信仰会とは関係あるのかないのか？
Cosmic Church of the Divine Light. Now, there's a cult name if I ever heard one. Fictional. A newly founded religion. Yep, cult. Inaugurated in 1930, their public estimate places their number of followers at around 5 million. Well, I guess with membership that high, I guess it technically doesn't count as a cult anymore. But the actual number is thought to be closer to 2 million. Its members are characterized by their ardent, forceful proselytization, which often causes repeated trouble for anyone involved. Karamochi Yuda, the second generational founder, possesses absolute charisma, and in return, his followers offer absolute reverence. Well, wait till they get a load of me and my charisma. Or lack thereof. Divine Church of the what now? My thoughts exactly. I shook my head reflexively. I can't breathe. You're choking me. I'm gonna pass out. I'm gonna die. I'm done for. Re-me! Save me! Just before I lost consciousness, Sena suddenly let go of me, and I collapsed to the ground. I kept on coughing, struggling desperately to get oxygen in my lungs. Was Sena my enemy after all? Was she another one of Shougan's underlings? If she was, then I had to run away.
関係ないならいい。悪かった。
Noticing my confusion, Sena clicked her tongue lightly, then let out a sigh. And then, without saying another word, she went to leave. Hey now, you roughed me up! I think you owe me at least some explanation here. Guess she wasn't going to hurt me. Then... Mustering up all my courage, I called after her. I expected her to ignore me, but instead, she stopped and turned around. Her expression remained stern, but she still looked like she was willing to listen to what I had to say.
力って何なの？
Sena knew something. She'd asked me if I created the flower bed from before. Everyone but me had recognized the flower bed as something that had always been there, but that didn't seem to apply to Sena.
さっきの花壇どうなって？
お前が妄想したんだろ？
A delusion. I had, but...
妄想は現実にすることが可能だ。本当じゃないものが景色に紛れ込む。つまり、エラーを現実として認識させる。
でも視界に映すだけじゃそれって幻でしかないよ。
Illusions were nothing more than that. Illusions. Fake stuff you perceive as real. If that flower bed had just been an illusion, then Ayase shouldn't have survived. The only way Ayase would have been saved was if the flower bed hadn't been an illusion, but entirely real.
世界の仕組みは3つの数字で全て説明できる。0と1、そしてマイナス1。ディソードはそのマイナス1を生み出すためのショートカットになる。だがお前はディソードなしでそれをやった。
There she goes again. More incomprehensible garbage. Wait. But I realized that what Sena was telling me wasn't just some schizo shit she'd come up with. The VR technology patent did exist after all. So that at least wasn't BS. Sena definitely knew things that I didn't.
いいか、これ以上エラーを作るな。それがお前のためだ。それと他にもエラーを見たら教えろ。
Without letting me get a word in, Sena blasted me with thing after thing. most of which sounded like threats. And then, when she was finally done, she turned her back to me.
目に見えるものだけを信じられることがどんなに幸せか。
After spitting out one last murmur, this time, Sena finally left the park. Where is Remy, by the way? I would have figured if all this commotion we would have run into her already. There's no sign of her. The floor of AH Tokyo General Hospital that housed the psychiatric ward was engulfed in silence. Ever since the earthquake had struck, the emergency room and surgical ward had been faced with a difficult situation. Injured citizens who had lost consciousness due to unexplained symptoms were being carried into the clinic, one after the other. The psychiatric ward, meanwhile, was not nearly as involved in the relief efforts, nor were the outpatient facilities, allowing the latter department to conclude its operations even earlier than usual. Over the last few days, patients suffering from PTSD had come pouring in, but, at least for today, the psychiatric ward had finished all of its outpatient appointments. A nurse there, Hazuki Shino, realized that she had been working non-stop ever since her shift began the night before, and that she had hardly even taken a break. This obviously left her feeling quite exhausted and, of course, hungry. The psychiatric ward had recently lost one of its doctors in the New Gen incidents, and the person replacing him had yet to arrive, leaving them constantly understaffed. However, despite the shortage, all that remained for today's work were some minor chores that Hazuki could pass off to the next nurse, allowing her to take some time off. Reassuring herself that she only had to persevere for a little bit longer, Hazuki slapped her cheeks with both hands, then began to walk through the empty lobby, only to suddenly feel a gaze on her back. Chills ran down the nape of her neck. Goosebumps rose across her skin. She reflexively looked behind her. But all she saw was a silent corridor. Not a soul was there. Whose eyes are those eyes?
Huh? 看護師さん
Hazuki jumped in surprise. She had heard a voice from an entirely different direction. The origin of the voice was a single man standing in the lobby, which Hazuki had been convinced was empty. He had called out to her the moment he first saw her. Well, look who it is. How are we doing today, Suwa? He was a fairly young man and appeared quite virile. His complexion was nearly faultless, and he looked just as, if not more, healthy.
あなたは
ちょっと時間もらっていいっすか
はあ
どうもっす
He smiled awkwardly, abruptly grabbed Hazuki's arm, and started walking her from the lobby towards the stairs. Hazuki, still quite bewildered, watched as the man, Suwa Mamoru, took out a black ID badge from his pocket and humbly held it out to her. It was a police badge. Stopping at the landing of a staircase, Suwa looked around carefully. He seemed to be very concerned of his surroundings.
それでお話って
That's what I'd like to know. Still having quite a bit of work left to do. Well, then again, she is a nurse that worked with Dr. Takashina. Still having quite a bit of work left to do, Hazuki was feeling slightly restless. Something Suwa seemed to understand implicitly. And then, without any form of introduction, Suwa produced a photo from his pocket.
この少年に見覚えないっすか
Depicted in the photo was the apathetic face of Nishijo Takumi. Oh, you're here to ask about Takumi. Hazuki, confident in her ability to recognize faces due to her profession, nodded her head.
西条匠間違いないっすか？
ええ。でも
Hasuki's hesitation was only natural. Leaking a patient's private information could only spell trouble, even if it was to police. But this was something Suwa had been aware of prior to speaking with Hazuki. Suddenly, Suwa's light attitude that he had been displaying up until that moment shifted to a far more serious one, and he began to speak in a low voice.
頼みがあるんすけど、西条匠のカルテこっそり見せてもらえないっすか？
そんなの無理です。できません。
Why keep it under the table?
とある事件に関わる重要なことなんすよ。
Now at a complete loss for words, Hazuki tried to leave, but Suwa circled around her and blocked her path.
困ります。
迷惑はかけないっす。だから頼みますよ。
As a last resort, Suwa got down on his knees.
やめてください。本当に無理なんです。
これ以上犠牲者を出さないためにも。
Hazuki had no idea what she could do to make him give up. Unable to think of any proper way to say no, Hazuki could do nothing but stammer. Why keep this part of your investigation under wraps, though? It's part of the official investigation, no? Or is he just saying that just to alleviate her concerns? I was in a bit of a daze after Sena left, but I quickly shook myself out of it and dashed all the way back to my base. Luckily, I hadn't been confronted by Shougan or Yua on the way. In the end, I'd come back home without finding Rimi. With all the insanity caused by Ayase and the earthquake, the school would probably let everyone go home early. So maybe if I waited a bit, Rimi would show up. In the meantime, though, I'd just have to suck it up and deal with my own fear. Alone. You got her phone number, don't you? Why don't you try calling her, see what happens? I'm quite curious to see what would happen myself. To distract myself from my growing anxiety, I went to try and gather information on my freshly restored PC. For as I thought that, the notification light on my phone, which I had set right next to my monitor, started blinking. When I opened it, I saw that I had received a text. I'd thought it was Rimi trying to contact me, but when I opened it, Shougan, Yua. Oh, Nanami. From, oh my god, it's Nanami! Perfect username. Gotta tell you about school today. Something crazy happened at school today. There was a suicide attempt. It was so freaky. I haven't been that scared in a while. Hope she's okay. Were you at school when it all went down, big bro? Oh, and wow, that earthquake was crazy too. It gave me a really, really, really bad headache, though. What was that all about? Your guess is as good. Your guess is, well, I guess my guess is technically better than yours, but I'm not that much closer to a concrete answer than you are. So she kind of enjoyed being part of the spectators, huh? That's not fucked up at all. Naturally, I didn't send a reply. I'm not getting anything that indicates to me that she enjoyed this. She enjoyed the spectacle of it. I think you're reading too much into this. I searched online for information on Ayase. Phantasm's official homepage was still down, and none of the newspapers had reported on her either. Well, I guess they had their hands full of the earthquake, so they couldn't really spend the time reporting on some random indie singer's suicide attempt. Where things were now, I had no way of figuring out how exactly Ayase was doing, so I switched topics. There was way more information on the earthquake than when I checked earlier. Apparently the death count had risen to 118, and the injured went above 300. Wow. I never thought the fatalities would go beyond 100. The epicenter was Shibuya, and it seemed the damage hadn't spread outside of it. It had been a seismic intensity 5 quake. According to one article, most of the magnetic media within Shibuya had been destroyed. When I thought about how I wasn't the only one to experience such tragedy, it made my frustration erupt all over again. It was a true, undeniable tragedy. My treasured Moe pics and Roge save data. They would never come back. Poor you. That aside, I couldn't help but feel that this was no normal earthquake. 118 people dying wasn't normal. And of course, the abnormality had grown into a hot topic of discussion online. Earthquake seismic intensity 5 in Shibuya. Lots of fatalities. Jesus Christ. How are they all such uncaring assholes? Well, they must be really acting assholish in order for you to feel morally outraged. You guys think this earthquake was caused by the whose eyes or those eyes guy too? Unironically, you might be close to the truth on that one. Maybe. What the hell? Whose eyes are those eyes for the win? Yeah, 100%. How else would 118 people die in a seismic SI5 earthquake? Like, what the fuck, LMAO? I tried to think back to what happened during the earthquake. First, I'd been hit by a tremendous impact. My head felt like it was boiling, exploding even. A sensation I'd never experienced before. Getting hit by something that bad. Dying from shock wouldn't be all that surprising. Telling myself that I shouldn't stick to just the internet, I decided to watch some news on TV as well. My PC had a TV tuner attached to it, so that was why I didn't have nor need an actual TV.
現在までに死者118名、重軽傷者300名以上と非常に多くの犠牲者が出ていることが分かっています。さて、渋谷の駅前と中継がつながったようです。島谷さん、現地の様子はいかがですか
？2005年に同じように震度5の地震が東京であったんですよ。その時はゼロで、なぜ今回は100名以上の被害者が出ているんですか？
被害者の数は震度に比例するわけじゃないんです。そこには様々な要因がありまして、亡くなった方の死因や病院に運ばれた負傷者の容体については未だ詳しい情報が入っておりません。また渋谷区を中心に磁気メディアが全壊してしまっていることについて今日は専門家にお越しいただいております。
地質学産業研究所より林原泰造先生、財団法人地質調査環境センターより小沢幹人先生にお越しいただきました。
林原さん、今回の地震について磁気メディアに深刻な被害が出た原因というのはどういうところにあるんでしょうか？
まず知っておいていただきたいのは、渋谷区あたりの地下200メートル付近には磁鉄鉱、つまり天然の磁石が多く埋蔵されている地層があるということですね。地層の分類としては火成岩層ですが、私たちはこのエリアを磁鉄鉱の谷、マグネタイトバレーと呼んでいます。
I wonder if all this magnetic rock had something to do with that earthquake too.
地中にある磁石の谷ですね。文字通りかなり大規模な岩脈なんですよ。ここにですね、 今回の地震のような大きな刺激が加わったとするならば、その影響で地上に存在する自生体、主に磁気メディアの持つ記録部に、致命的なダメージを与えてもおかしくはないんです。
何をバカな。
小沢先生は別の意見ですか？
確かに渋谷の地下には巨大なマグネタイトの岩脈があることは事実です。ですが磁石と呼ぶにはあまりにも微弱なこのマグネタイト群にはですね、地上の磁気モーメントや安定磁場を崩すほどの力はないというのが通説になっています。
Unless something gave the power of these magnets a boost.
実際ですね、過去にも震度5の地震は何度も発生しています。過去のそれらの地震では今回のような被害はなかった。なので原因は別にあるのではないかと考えるのが妥当だと思います。
そうは言うがね、今回の異常な犠牲者数についてはただの地震では片付けられない何かがあるのが事実なわけであり、渋谷にいた人のほとんどが頭痛がしたって訴えていることからも間違いなく自鉄鋼が関係している可能性が。
地場ごときで100人も殺せると主張するおつもりですか？
それではここで CM です。
結局詳しいことは何も分からずか。
Pretty much. Right after the earthquake, there had been a huge white mist floating above Shibuya. It turned the sky completely white, and yet it hadn't even been mentioned on the news. When information had been fresh, everyone made sure to report on it. But now they were acting like it never happened. Something about that just felt wrong. Well, I bet there's a lot of information control being done on the media with this stuff. Probably on orders from these secret societies that we're learning about, and Nozomi. The off-hours entrance to AH Tokyo General Hospital featured an area where ambulances could pull up alongside the building in order to deliver emergency patients. 2 ambulances were currently parked there, and paramedics were carrying those injured during the earthquake into the hospital. A doctor wearing light green surgical scrubs and the middle-aged head nurse accompanying him were loudly directing the paramedics through the process. The area around the off-hours entrance was already lined with patients, waiting to receive treatment, the sheer number of which indicating how busy the doctors truly were. There were 2 types of patients getting carried into the hospital. First, the ones suffering from physical trauma. Patients would come in with blood flowing from their arms, legs, and foreheads, their faces contorted in pain. While their state made them difficult to look upon, their treatment had been relegated to a lower priority. The other type were those who were unconscious despite showing no signs of physical trauma. Those patients were prioritized. The number of unconscious people was awfully high among the emergency patients brought in from this particular earthquake. Such a high number had not been observed following the previous major earthquakes. It was an entirely new phenomenon. Moreover, the doctors were unable to explain the reason why so many of them had fallen unconscious. Another ambulance arrived at the hospital, its siren blaring loudly. When the emergency responders disembarked from the ambulance, a doctor asked the patient's condition, and a paramedic immediately responded with, That was all it took. In a normal situation, the doctor would have protested, asked for more information. In such an unprecedented, chaotic situation, one would have expected that just shouting top priority would be answered by a succinct, "You don't say!" And yet, surprisingly, both the doctor and the head nurse merely gave a light nod, then proceeded to help unload the stretcher from the ambulance. The person lying on the stretcher was Kishimoto Ayase. She was unconscious, yet faint moans escaped her lips. She gets top priority treatment, huh? I suspect something fishy here. Paying no mind to the resentful gazes of the injured patients sitting around the entrance, the doctor and paramedics hurriedly carried a stretcher inside the hospital. What are you doing here? A girl stood at the hospital's main entrance, observing the situation from a distance. Saki Hadarimi's eyebrows furrowed atop her stern expression. Her teeth sank into her lip.
Kishimoto-san.
You followed Ayase? That's interesting. Why? Obviously, I was concerned about the earthquake, but Shougan was way more of an issue to me. I couldn't get him out of my head. And speaking of, my headache was more or less gone, but anxiety had already swooped right on in to replace it, as did the depression that came along with being alone. I still hadn't heard from Rimi. I tried to call her myself, but had gone straight to voicemail. Up until now, Rimi had always come dashing in to rescue me, tell me everything would be fine. So of all days for her to not to do that, why today? Hadn't she told me that she would always stay by my side? I gritted my teeth, and then, as a way to escape my anxiety, I decided to focus entirely on reconfiguring my PC. First things first, I needed to fix the settings on my email software. It had been forever since I'd set it up, so I couldn't remember how exactly to do it. So the first thing I had to do was find the instruction manual that had been included in the email software provided by my ISP. Despite not putting in much actual physical work, I found myself drenched in sweat. I'd nearly given up out of frustration multiple times throughout the process. I'd ended up eating a full hour of my time, half of which was spent trying to find a damn manual, just to recover my email address. Well, now that I had it back, I should check it right away. Nanami, why are you sending me an email with the subject being whose eyes are those eyes? And I see Shin has something for you regarding having mind-blowing sex. And Maria. Okay, I think these are just spam emails. I could finally hear that voice again. I felt so relieved. All that pain and suffering had all been worth it. I had 8 new emails, all of which were spam. Poor Nanami, you're nothing but spam to your brother. Actually, hidden among the spam was an email with a strange subject line and an even stranger sender. I groaned reflexively. What the hell? Was Nanami trying to prank me? I'm getting a bad feeling from this. If she was, then it was a pretty shitty thing to do. I genuinely wanted to punch her in the face. No, wait a minute. There was no reason for me to get an email from Nanami. She had never contacted me using my computer's email address before. she'd always just texted me on my phone, like she had earlier. And not only that, but I'd never even given her my email address. That's curious. Was it just a coincidence? A fluke? Nanami was a common first name, after all. And the phrase, whose eyes are those eyes, had become so popular, pretty much everyone was using it. There was nothing strange about being used as a subject for a spam email. But, just to soothe my anxiety, I decided to check the contents. Oh boy, I have a feeling I'm really not gonna like this.
結構な長文だな。さっきはチャットで話ができて楽しかったよ。ちなみに送信者の名前はダミー。僕の名前は将軍だよ。
Yep. I knew I wouldn't like it. Shougan. No. It couldn't be.
将軍が僕のメアド知ってるはずが。
Probably because he picked your brain for it while you were sleeping. Wait. What if Shougan had read my mind? If he'd done that, figuring out my email address would be child's play.
嘘でしょ。
It was fun chatting with you earlier. Before anything else, though, I should mention, the sender name is an alias. My actual name is Shougan. I'm glad Ayase-san's safe. I initially planned to paint her as the next victim of my new gen canvas, but suicide works too. You've outdone yourself, Takumi-kun. You've got a new high score. I'm very impressed. You really are something special. But enough about that stuff. Let's talk about Nishijo Nanami-tan. Oh, fuck. She's in danger. What the hell? The two of you are siblings, so I'd love to see some juicy drama unfold between you two. Ever since the earthquake hit, Shibuya has been pretty bloodthirsty. Whether we can reach a conclusion so touching, it'll blast all that away in an instant. That's up to you. It's real hard to clear quests unarmed, isn't it? You're a hero, so don't you feel you deserve a legendary sword to match? I know you do, so I hope you're looking forward to what I've got in store for you. As I read the email, seeing how friendly he was acting toward me only served to creep me out even more. This guy, he was insane. Why would he? At 9 p.m. tonight, I want you to come to the roof of O Front. You're going to be on TV, so make sure you put on a heroic tunic. Now then, let the quest to rescue Nanami begin. P.S. Before I forget, did you get my present? He was talking about quests and high scores, like this was some sort of game.
僕が勇者なんかじゃない。ナイトハルトじゃない。
He was planning to finally kill me. I couldn't go. There was no way I could go. I wanted to run away. Rimi, I need you to protect me. Why wasn't she answering me when I tried to contact her? Maybe she'd been injured in the earthquake? But back when I'd seen Misumi-kun, he didn't mention anything happening to her. I picked up my phone and checked if I'd gotten any calls or texts from Remy. Remy, where did you? Right as I thought that, something stopped me. It was my texts. At the top of the list, I could see the text Nanami had sent me earlier. Was Nanami okay? I'm gonna say no. I read Shougan's email again from top to bottom. But enough about that stuff. Let's talk about Nishijo Nanami-chan. Now then, let the quest to rescue Nanami begin. What was that supposed to mean? Forget that. I should just call Nanami. I opened the address book on my phone. Only 3 numbers were registered there. Remy's, Nanami's, and a number from my parents' house. Nanami was always nagging me to call her. Every time we saw each other, she'd bug me about it. Well, since she'd asked so many times, I guess I could throw her a bone. So please, answer. If you don't, I'm never calling you again. I swear to God, if you got injured during the earthquake and aren't answering because of it, I'll never let you hear the end of it. I selected Nanami's number and pressed the call button. I put the phone to my ear. I heard nothing. The ringing tone didn't start immediately. It was normal for my phone to take a second whenever I called with it, but right now, that 1 second of silence felt like an eternity. I was getting increasingly antsy.
早くしてよ。よし、繋がった。
What is that? Huh? What? That sound. What was that sound? I pulled my phone away from my ear. Wait, is that her phone? An unfamiliar melody echoed throughout the room. Could it be a ringtone? Whose phone was ringing? I think I see what happened here. Nanami got kidnapped while she was coming here to check on me, wasn't she? I'm gonna go with red. But with the timing, what else could it be? I shook my head. I had never heard Nanami's ringtone, so there was no proof that the melody I was hearing was it. No proof at all. Wait a minute. What if I select the green option, she'll just appear right outside my door as though nothing's wrong? But if I select a red, that would end up actually putting her in danger. Like, do I actually have the power to avert this right here, right now, depending on what I choose? Oh, fuck it, I'll go with green. I had never heard Nanami's ringtone, so there was no proof that the melody I was hearing was it. No proof at all. I was getting scared now. I pressed my phone back to my ear. Well, the screen isn't wobbling, so if this is the delusion, it's not immediately obvious. Nanami still wasn't answering. Please pick up. Pick up the phone already. Oh, she picked up, and the ringing and that sound stopped, too.
ななみでしょ。返事しろよ。今どこにいるんだ。大丈夫なの。何か言って。ななみ。
実は。
Huh? What the? Something weird was going on. It was almost like I was hearing Nanami not just through the phone, but from somewhere really close by, too.
お前、一体どこにいるんだ。
Under the bed?
上
My gaze wandered upward. Something was moving on top of my bed. Well, not under the bed, but on top of it. Close enough. A person. Someone was wriggling around up there, and because of how little space they had, eroge cases crumbled to the floor as they did. Don't tell me.
そこにいるの。
見つかっちゃった。
My guess had been right. Nanami peeked out from atop the bed with an apologetic look on her face. You crawled under his bed, right in the middle of the pile of eroge. You brave soul. Has she just been hiding this whole time? But since when?
何が手だよ。それより車椅子の怪しいやつに会わなかったか。
As she got off the bed, I examined her from top to bottom to see if she was hurt anywhere.
鬼、ちょっと落ち着いてってば。
聞いてるんだ。答えろよ。お前、本当に大丈夫なのか。
それって将軍のことだよね。
And how do you know about Shougan?
まさかあったのか。どこで何をされた。
Wait, this has to be a delusion. I grabbed Nanami by the shoulders, desperately pressing her for an answer. Jesus Christ. Yes, Nanami could be a huge brat, but if Shougan had defiled her, it'd be all my fault. I'm happy to see that you actually care. Shougan had put his hands on her as a means to provoke me. To him, she was just collateral damage.
ごめん。
I was so ashamed. I started to cry. I was causing problems not just for myself, but for those around me. Harmless otaku, my ass. I was a failure. Not just as a brother, but as a human being. I was scum. Complete and utter scum.
鬼、泣いてるの？もしかしてナナのことを心配してくれてる？
ごめん。僕のせいで。
泣かないでよ。困ったな。実はあの将軍のメール、ナナのいたずらなんだ。
は？
But where'd you get the name Shougan, sister? Why did you pick that name in particular? I'm still doubting you're even real right now. I couldn't process what she'd said. I was stunned.
つまり将軍ってナナだったの、最初からずっと。お兄があまりにもナナの相手してくれないからちょっとからかうつもりでつい。
First, yeah, okay. The Shougan was you all along, and the first part of this prank of yours was sending me prophetic photographs of one of the New Gen murders that I would happen to be captured right in the middle of. Yeah, okay, sure. This is actually happening right now. Totally. Definitely not a delusion. No, sir.
だからね、 ナナは誰にも何にもされてないし、全くピンピンしてるよ。お兄が泣くことなんてないの。わかった？
お前。
I was relieved. Upon learning that she deceived me, the release of all my tension and fear made me cry even harder. I couldn't believe that she'd do that to me, and I was pretty upset that she'd been screwing with me for so long, but none of that mattered right now.
ふざけんなよ。
ごめん、本当にごめんね、お兄。差し入れ持ってきたから、それで許して。
She held her hands together as if in prayer as she apologized to me, and then she cheerfully took out a paper box that had been hidden in the corner. Inside the box were 4 tiny cakes, 2 Mont Blancs, and 2 cheesecakes.
どう？美味し
cheesecake.
そうでしょ？まあ、当然だよね。ナナの手作りだもん。お兄のために作ったんだからね。
How generous of you.
ほら、一緒に食べよう。
Nami put it on my desk. Put the box on my desk. Then placed 2 cakes on 2 different paper plates that she'd set out. No idea where they'd come from, though.
ねえお兄、ナナのこと心配してくれてありがとう。すごく嬉しかった。お兄にもいいところあるじゃん。泣いちゃったのはちょっと情けなかったけどね。
I don't know. I think it's refreshing compared to how he normally presents himself. Just don't do it too often, though. Shut your mouth, you lying, backstabbing bitch. My pride had been torn to shreds. I'd been deceived, betrayed, and I'd even ended up crying. I couldn't believe how pathetic I was. How stupid I was.
でもお兄がナナのお兄でよかった。
She smiled at me happily. It was a more peaceful sight than I was used to. How nice it would be if that was what actually happened. I knew it. Yeah, that was nothing more than just an overly convenient, easy-to-swallow delusion of mine. Nanami still hadn't picked up, and the sound of someone's ringtone continued to echo throughout the room. The melody was a happy-go-lucky one, something that was in harsh contrast to my current state of mind. The sense of dread within me was growing. There was no getting around it. Nanami's phone was in this room. I couldn't think of any other explanation. I couldn't avert my eyes from reality anymore. P.S. Before I forget, did you get my present? This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. No matter how much, it didn't matter how much sense it made. It just couldn't be true. I slowly lowered the hand holding my phone. I couldn't even blink. My throat was dry as a desert. Even still, I searched for the source of the sound. This time, I slowly, ever so slowly, examined each and every object scattered throughout the room. I hated myself more than ever for not cleaning my room. If only I was more organized, I could have spotted where it was coming from immediately. Where the hell was it coming from? That box. The song was coming from inside of it. It was the size of about 2 eroge cases. At first I thought it was something I'd bought online, but there was nothing printed on it. There wasn't a shipping label either. It was sealed with duct tape. Had this large box always been here? Had fallen from the bed during the earthquake?
Yeah.
It couldn't have. I'd never seen it before. If it was something I'd bought online, I would have opened it straight away. If it was something I had sold and was shipping to someone else, I'd have sent it off the moment I sealed it up. For a second, I considered that maybe Nanami had dropped it off, but I couldn't remember her bringing it in a cardboard box of this size, which could only mean, during the hour I'd been at school, someone had entered my base. I have a present for you. I hope it pleases you. My heart was beating out of my chest. In a panic, I went to check the lock on my door. A chill ran down my spine. Earlier in the day, when I'd wandered outside my base, I didn't remember locking the door, and I couldn't blame myself. At the time, I'd been suffering from a stabbing headache, and I was really dizzy. When I come back from school an hour later, I hadn't locked the door then either. Anyone could have easily gotten in. Was it Shougan? Had Shougan really broken in? I looked at the box again. The song was still playing. Nanami's phone was in there. I nervously lifted the cardboard box. It was heavy. With how heavy it was, there was no way there was just a phone inside. There better not be a severed limb or something in there. It weighed about the same as 500 milliliters of soda. I was hesitant to open it. I had a very bad feeling about this.
こんなの開きたくないよ。
I don't either. But there was nothing else I could do. I had to open it. I was too worried about Nanami. She was a total brat, but at the end of the day, she was still my little sister. Nanami's phone was in the box. In other words, someone had taken her phone from her. Now then, let the quest to rescue Nanami begin. That had been Shogun's email. I looked at the clock. It was already past 7:30. That's not much time for where we're supposed to go. Nanami might be in danger. I had no choice but to open it. My heart refused to stop pounding. Large drops of sweat began trickling down my forehead. With a moan, I wiped away the sweat with the back of my hand, and then I slowly tore off the shoddily applied duct tape.
やだ、やだ、やだ、やだ、やだ、やだ、やだ、やだ、やだ、やだ、やだ、やだ。
Mumbling that like a prayer, I opened the box. Inside was a lump of aluminum foil, packed carefully with cushioning material. I peeked fearfully inside the box, but the phone was nowhere to be seen. The song was coming from inside the foil. Sweat got in my eyes, and it stung. Before I knew it, my entire body had gotten soaked in sweat. No, I can't do this anymore. Why me? Why does it have to be me? I nearly said those tearful complaints aloud. I pleaded with Saratan for comfort, but she didn't say anything. A myriad of delusions swirled within my head, so much so that it felt like I was on the verge of exploding. I couldn't even focus hard enough to have a delusional conversation with Saratan. My mind was racing so fast I couldn't even think straight. And yet, despite the near shutdown in my brain, the happy-go-lucky melody from the phone kept assaulting me relentlessly.
あげるぞ。
Having made up my mind, I pinched the edges of the aluminum foil with my fingers. Closed my eyes, held my breath, and tore off the aluminum foil in one go. I could hear the song even more clearly than before. I was too afraid to open my eyes. I tried as hard as I could to catch my breath, but to no avail. It was fine. Everything was fine. There was nothing to be afraid of. It was just a harmless prank from Nanami. Just wait. Any second now, Nanami was going to burst into the room with a big smile on her face, yelling, "Surprise! Haha! I got you!" Yeah, I was sure of it. There was no reason to even consider anything else. Once she did that, I'd lay into her like never before. Then I'd never talk to her ever again. Go on, Nanami. Prove me right. I had to open my eyes. I couldn't keep staring at the darkness. Come on, man! The suspense is killing me! Not looking at it was only making things worse. All it did was force me to imagine what horrors might be inside. I couldn't handle anything more terrifying delusions. And so, I slowly opened my eyes and saw it. God damn it, I hate being right as often as I am. Lying in the foil was a hand. A cleanly severed, slender hand. Grasped in that hand was a phone identical to mine. And wrapped around its wrist was...
へえ、かわいいバングルじゃん。じゃあさ、これナナにちょうだい。ひひ、お兄どう？似合う？
A yell of a bandana turned crimson. A bangle. Fucking hell.
ここからは少し専門的な話になりますが、
君は元医師だろ。患者に説明するように分かりやすく簡潔に話してもらえるとありがたい。
努力しましょう。さて、人間の脳の中にある何億という脳細胞、それらは細い神経の糸を出し合ってそれぞれに手をつないでいるような格好をしています。しかし実際には各神経の先端にある手と手の間にはごくわずかな隙間が空いているんですよ。脳細胞に情報の電気信号が送り出されると、その神経の手のひらから極小の物質ドーパミンがボールのように飛び出してきます。それは反対側の神経の手のひらにキャッチされ、再度情報の電気信号に変わってまた隣の脳細胞に伝わっていく。脳の構造は簡単に言うとその繰り返しです。我が社が開発した第2世代ノア2はこの部分に干渉することで人に疑似的な映像を見せることを可能としました。
ホログラムのようなものか。
あるいは幻覚かな。
幻覚の方が近いでしょう。ですが明確に違う点として、その疑似的映像は 確かな存在感があるものとして映るということです。
Dopamine, a neurotransmitter found inside the brain. Dopamine is mainly produced by the A9 and A10 nerves found in the brainstem, where it is then released from synapses. Humans learn through various experiences as they go throughout their daily lives. Dopamine is released in large amounts during these activities, regulating emotions in such a way that it allows for easier learning. On the other side of the coin, however, there are many symptoms that are thought to be caused by excessive dopamine release. These include hallucinations, delusions, paranoia, obsessive-compulsive disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, substance addiction, the inability to quit smoking, etc.
人間の目、視覚というのは実に興味深いものです。視野は単眼の場合、鼻側60度、耳側100度程度。両眼の重複視野は120度で、周辺視野を含めれば180度から200度もの視界が広がっているんです。その一方で、以前ご説明したようなデッドスポットもまた存在する。脳にとって視覚とは最もつながりの深い部位です。脳はそのおよそ 80% を視神経情報の処理のためだけに使っている。
その点については300人委員会も注目しておる。
人間の視覚にはまだまだ謎が多い。世界中で研究テーマとして上がっているものだけでも1000以上に及ぶからね。
アメリカで数年前に発行された行政命令、機密の人体研究に対する保護の強化というのは委員会による圧力ですか？
圧力ではない。これは選定だよ。
300人委員会はどこの馬の骨とも知れん研究者がこの分野に足を踏み入れることを歓迎せん。当然ながらアメリカだけではなく世界各国にも同様の指示は出ている。
我が国は随分自由のようですね。私のような人間を放置しているぐらいですから。
勘違いしてはいかんな。何のために我々がいると思っている？
君はすでに選定済みなんだよ。だからこそ君には何よりも成果が求められている。
300人委員会をも出し抜けるような成果というわけですね。
うかつな口を聞くなと言っておる。
今はまだ我らの真の目的を誰にも悟られてはならない。たとえ委員会に対してもね。
これは失礼。
説明を続けたまえ。
ノア2が生み出した疑似的映像は視神経パルスに変換して電磁波として照射します。対象の皮膚や頭蓋骨を貫通して直接ドーパミン受容体、つまり先ほどの説明でいうところの手のひらにキャッチさせるのです。そしてデッドスポットへと最終的に落とし込まれる。特に G レートの高いエリアの人々は空中の映像パルス信号を敏感にキャッチします。混乱した脳はその疑似的映像を現実だと判断することになります。
And this is where all the new gen murders occur. So this sounds to me like it definitely is lending even more credence to the idea that maybe these murders were committed by people who were driven out of their damn minds. Or in the case of the group dive that we saw in that video, driven to suicide. Whose eyes are those eyes, and all that. So, I guess it's nice to see that we got more evidence to support our theory, support my theory.
これが人間の視界の中に無から有を作り出すメカニズムです。ノア2を用いれば街中のどこを見ても 先生の選挙ポスターだらけなどという芸当も容易というわけです。ただしあくまで人々のバイオリズムが高い状態であることが条件ですが、
幻覚によって意志を誘導するか。沈黙の兵器とシステムは同じというわけだね。
Silent weapons. Devices designed to implement mind control on a global scale. They allow for the automation of society and the enslavement of all humanity except for the few elite. Based on top secret documents, silent weapons for quiet wars, discovered in the United States. I think I've heard of the term silent weapons somewhere before. Can't remember where though.
条件さえ満たせば対象の見ている世界を自在に書き換えることができる。
それはギガロマニアックスと同等の力ということか。
その通りです。ノア2は機械仕掛けのギガロマニアックスと言ってもいいでしょう。理論値通りに稼働を始めればギガロマニアックスたちと同等、いや近い将来それ以上の能力を再現できるようになります。
Well, I guess going by what I've just heard, I can write off Noah too being a person, but rather some sort of device.
だが効果の有効範囲はどうなっている？電磁波は垂れ流しなのかね？
それでは汎用性という点がおろそかになる。我々は無差別な洗脳を望んでおるわけではない。対象は選定できなければ無意味だぞ。
ご心配なく。そのために機能因子を用意してあります。モニターをご覧ください。
なんだこの小汚い連中は。
我が社ではポーターと呼んでいます。
This guy's got a Saratan shirt on from the looks of it. Porters.
言い換えればマインドコントロールのための部隊といったところでしょうか。
These backpacks that they're carrying. That man that Sena confronted in that park must be one of these so-called porters. Mind control. A technique used to guide people to a predetermined conclusion while providing the illusion that their decisions have been of their own volition. Unlike brainwashing, however, it shows no clear evidence of coercive force. For example, a pedestrian may be stopped on the side of the road by a person calling out to them. "I'm studying palm reading," the person says. If the pedestrian humors them, the palm reader may then invite the pedestrian to join their religion, creating an atmosphere in which it feels like they can't refuse. This and a variety of similar tactics are all forms of mind control.
彼らが背負っているリュックの中にはノア2のパルス波を送受信するためのポートが入っています。ポートは信号を受け取るとリモートで周囲へと放出するわけです。
歩く端末というわけか。それならば有効範囲の制限などないに等しいな。
限定的使用も問題ないことになるね。
状況は理解した。貴様は引き続き計画を続行したまえ。
ただし300人委員会に悟られるような言動はくれぐれも慎むように。
あとは何人犠牲を出そうと構わん。
ご理解いただきありがとうございます。それではポーターとして使える人材を提供していただきたいです。
手配しよう。
それと引き続き先生方にはメディアのコントロールをお願いいたします。すべては我ら3人の目指す理想のために。
Transmitters, huh? What do you want, Sarah?
ねえ、タッキー。聞こえてるっしょ?
I got more pressing matters to focus on rather than you, I'm afraid.
聞こえてるよ、セイラタン。
あのさ、もうこのゲーム終わりにしようよ。
Oh, I see. Is this a fourth wall break here?
ゲーム？
ナナミッチはタッキーの大事な妹だってのはわかるけど、きっともう手遅れだよ。
Well, aren't you being awfully pessimistic right now?
そんなことないよ。
だって腕を切り落とされちゃったらさ、普通出血多量で死んじゃうっしょ。ゲームだったら違うかもだけど。
Well, I mean, they could have cauterized the stump.
なんでナナミが。
もうさ、ゲームオーバーなんだよ、きっと。早くゲームをやめないと、もっとたくさん人が死んじゃう。
でもセイラタンだって悪いやつと戦ってるじゃないか。
だって私はアニメだもん。
Well, thanks for the vote of confidence, Sarah Tan. Really appreciate it. Bitch. Okay, so I guess Remy is preoccupied with Ayase. Sarah Tan is being the exact opposite of helpful. I guess we're going to be rescuing Nanami all on our own, aren't we? If we even can, that is. I'm going to hope that maybe we will be able to, since we did see earlier that we were able to manifest a flower bed for Ayase, so maybe if we think real hard, we can, I don't know, manifest a Gatling gun or something to shoot up whoever's holding Nanami hostage. That'd be nice. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and stop things here. This feels like a good place to stop. But yeah, I guess we're gonna be going on a quest to rescue Nanami in the next episode. And I predict that we're probably gonna be able to do it, but honestly, I have no idea for sure. Things could end up going south, and it'll end up leaving me feeling very, very, very sad. Me and Takumi both. So, that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention. So yeah, those guys basically explained what those devices were better than I remember. I remember saying back when I first saw them in the previous episode. So they were transmitters, basically. I wish I remembered that word when I was talking about them back when I first saw them, but yeah, that's basically what they were. So, looks like, if I remember right, I speculated that that's kind of what they had to have been too. So, yay! More validation. I am smart. Sometimes. Anyway, now that I got that out of the way, I'm going to end things here, like I said. And I hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of Chaos Head Noah. And if you did, and you want to see more content from me, feel free to hit like and subscribe. And I will see you all next time. Take care.